Tonight, the serial rapist working for the Met. Police Constable David Carrick can today be revealed as one of Britain's worst sex offenders. Among his long list of offences, 24 counts of rape.
It's the worst case I've ever worked on in my police career. The sheer enormity of it, the scale of what's happened, the offending and the acts committed are truly shocking.
But the Met failed to stop Carrick despite repeated allegations over 2 decades. Also on the programme, the moment mourners flee after a gunman opened fire outside a funeral. We have the latest as a 22-year-old is arrested. A long walk along what will become the country's longest railway bridge and...
Gosh, you've seen 4 birds. That's a great success, isn't it? Which was your favourite?
Robin.
Robin. Everyone loves a robin, don't they?
All creatures great and small. The Little Londoners helping Britain's big birdwatch. Good evening. 24 counts of rape, 9 counts of sexual assault, 3 of false imprisonment. The list of PC David Carrick's offences goes on and on. The fact he was a serving officer with the Met is not incidental to the violence he inflicted on at least a dozen women. It was woven into his crimes. He used his police badge to intimidate his victims, while the force missed many opportunities to stop him. All this while the Met tries to clean up its reputation for harbouring sexist and violent officers. We've had to leave out some of the worst details of Carrick's attacks, but there still are distressing details in this report from Divya Kohli.
He was a serving police officer with a duty to protect others, but instead he's one of the worst sexual offenders in modern history. PC David Carrick was an armed officer in the Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Command. Today, he admitted to 49 charges, including rape, sexual assault and false imprisonment against 12 women. Carrick looked down as the counts were read out at Southwark Crown Court. The only words to leave his mouth: guilty.
It will stay with me for a long time to come. It's the worst case I've ever worked on in my police career. The sheer enormity of it, the scale of what's happened, the offending and the acts committed are truly shocking.
Some of Carrick's victims were raped on multiple occasions. Some were locked in a small cupboard under the stairs at his home. They were left for hours without food or forced to clean his house naked. Carrick thrived on the humiliation of the women he abused. He was violent, he urinated on some of his victims and told them when they could sleep and when they could eat. He stopped them from seeing friends and family and completely controlled their finances. Throughout it all, he bragged that his position as a police officer would protect him. And for 18 years, that seemed to be the case. Between May 2001 and 2019, he faced allegations from harassment to assault, even grabbing a woman by the neck. In that time, he also faced a further 5 complaints from the public. But he was never arrested or referred, merely faced management action or was given words of advice. In that time, he had even been promoted and re-vetted by the force. In 2021, he was placed on restricted duties after an accusation of rape. By September, those restrictions were dropped. But a month later, he was arrested after another allegation of rape made by a different woman, and he was arrested. That investigation prompted a further 12 women to come forward. Serious questions are being asked today about why the Metropolitan Police failed to spot just how dangerous Carrick was, despite being informed of repeated allegations against him during his 20-year career.
There'll be women across London and more widely that this prompts them to question whether the police can keep them safe. And for that reason, I think it's important that I recognise that we failed, and that I'm sorry, and that I know we've let women down. I mean, I think we failed over 2 decades to be as ruthless as we ought to be.
The vetting failed, the disciplinary process has failed. So I'm not surprised about it because, these issues keep coming up. And even now, you're listening to the comments made by the Met Police. There's apologies, but there's no action.
The victims in this case are still being supported, praised for their bravery in speaking out against Carrick. Now that he has pleaded guilty, the details of their ordeals won't now need to come out in court. David Carrick will be sentenced next month.
Divya is outside New Scotland Yard for us now, where women's equality groups are holding a protest. Divya, there is growing pressure on the force, isn't there?
in that pool interview. He says he is utterly determined.
Yes, there's been much reaction to the David Carrick case today, sparking anger, frustration and major concern into how such a dangerous man was able to serve in the force. The Women's Equality Party have been protesting outside New Scotland Yard this evening. They're calling for a nationwide inquiry in what they believe is misogyny within the police. Meanwhile, the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, is being urged to launch a full inquiry into how serial sex offender David Carrick was able to serve as a police officer for so long. That call is being made by Baroness Casey. She is currently conducting a review into Met Police standards and internal culture. Those calls are being echoed by the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, who was unwilling to make an apology today. He said he doesn't apologise at all for losing confidence in the previous commissioner, and that investment to increase the size of the police force and vetting of police officers is underway.
OK, Divya, thank you. Well, I'm joined now by Ruth Davison, the Chief Executive of the women's charity Refuge. Ruth, welcome. If you look at this, there were behaviours, offences, actually, that you could have spotted earlier on. Domestic violence, the way he treated women, harassment. But you have to listen to them and take them seriously, don't you?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Duncan. The first report of an offence by David Carrick was before he even became a police officer. The brutal reality is he should never have become a police officer in the first place. If domestic abuse was treated as the serious crime that it absolutely is, we wouldn't need to be in this position. And countless women, 13 so far, but many more expected to come forward by the Met. Now this case can be reported on. So many women's lives wouldn't have been damaged in this horrendous way.
We saw there outside New Scotland Yard people calling for an inquiry. What do you want to see happen at the Met?
Well, I welcome the work that Baroness Casey's already doing, but frankly, we have had enough of inquiries. We've had enough apologies. We've had enough broken promises. After the terrible murder of Sarah Everard, we were told the Met was making the safety of women and girls their top priority. And yet, after that happened, a woman came forward, reported rape by David Carrick, and as you saw, he wasn't even suspended. So these words are empty compared to the ongoing violence. So many crimes over 2 decades by one serving police officer. How are we meant to feel safe?
You sound like you're losing faith.
I am angry, and I think many, many women are angry. These are the police officers who are supposed to be here to protect us. How can we have any confidence? And I would say if you have lost faith in the police, it's only because of these incredibly brave women coming forward that we are now getting justice. So come to Refuge. If you can't go to the police, come to us. We are open 24 hours a day on our domestic abuse helpline, and we will believe you and we will support you.
On that point about going to you and not going to the police if you don't feel like you can, it's a really tricky situation, isn't it? This is a minority, an awful minority. So many Met police officers will be disgusted by this and would take these crimes seriously. You know, what would you say to women who are suffering? You would still encourage them to go to the police, wouldn't you?
Of course, report. If you don't feel safe to go to the police, then come to us. You have to speak up. And I understand and have huge solidarity and respect for the women who have spoken up, but it is not easy. Yes, it's a minority, but there's 1,000 officers in the Met Police out of 47,000 who currently have accusations of sexual misconduct against them. It's not one bad apple. Others are referring to a bad orchard. There are far too many police officers where there are outstanding issues that haven't been looked into and haven't been dealt with, some of which over a course of 2 decades. So I would say, yes, of course you need to report. That's how you get justice. But I don't underestimate how difficult that is. And if you need the support of specialist organisations like Refuge, who are here for women, please come to us and we will help you.
There is help out there. We can't say that enough, can we? Ruth, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
A man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after a drive-by shooting at a memorial service in Camden this weekend. 4 women and 2 children were injured in the attack outside St Lucius Church. A 7-year-old girl is still in hospital with life-threatening injuries. A warning: Helen Keenan's report contains images you may find distressing.
This is how a place of peace became a bloody scene. The bang of a shotgun. Their fear is palpable. Fired at a church congregation from a moving car as they run for their lives. Inside, confusion quickly becomes panic at St Aloysius Church in Euston.
Immediately there were screams and shouts, and people who were making their way outside of the church suddenly reversed and started coming back inside, running inside in fact, and someone shouted out there's been a shooting, so it was panic, pandemonium.
Around 300 mourners were leaving the service at this church when the shots were fired. This was gunfire in the middle of the afternoon as women and children came down these steps after paying their respects. A 7-year-old girl has been seriously hurt in the shooting on Saturday. She is still in hospital with life-threatening injuries. A 12-year-old was also injured, along with 4 women.
There was lots of ambulances, lots of chaos, people crying.
Now we're like, OK, are the kids safe going to and from school?
The service was being held to remember 20-year-old Sarah Sanchez, who had died from leukemia in November, and her mother, who died the same month. It was thought the drive-by shooting could have links to the Colombian drug trade after it was reported Frisia Calderon's former husband had links to the cartel.
We've had knife and gun murders in this area.
But community leaders think it more likely to be local gang violence.
This is not something that we haven't seen for the last 2 years. 2 years ago we had a shooting in Clarence Gardens, very similar to this. The community is very shaken up by it and really frightened.
While the mayor says gun crime in London has been going down since he's been at the helm, he admits that's no consolation to those hurt in the church shooting.
And there's no consolation if you're this 7-year-old child or her family. My promise is to continue to be tough on crime by investing in the police.
This car was stopped by armed police in North London. A 22-year-old man is now in custody, arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. Scenes like these certainly make it appear like there's a growing problem with violence in London, an already solemn day that was struck with even more tragedy. Helen Keenan, ITV News.
The O2 Academy in Brixton has had its licence suspended for 3 months after a crowd crush killed 2 people. Lambeth Council's licensing committee made the decision to give the Met Police time to carry out its investigation into what happened. Rebecca Ikamelo and Gabby Hutchinson were killed last month as fans tried to enter a gig. A 3rd person is still critically ill. A man in his 60s has been arrested as part of an investigation into the discovery of traces of uranium at Heathrow Airport. Very small amounts of the radioactive metal were found in a cargo package on the 29th of December. The Met's Counter-Terrorism Command say despite the arrest, the incident is not believed to be linked to any direct threat to the public. Next tonight, the family of a woman who went missing 10 years ago have told ITV News London they are still broken. Lisa Poor was last seen in Willesden in January 2013. She left behind 3 children. Now, the Met are offering a £10,000 reward for anyone with information that might lead them to understand what happened to her. This report from our senior correspondent Ron K. Phillips begins with Lisa's father, Mohammed.
My daughter's disappearance is really broken me. But not knowing where she is and what happened to her, it's very difficult to handle. For me, for the kids, for my wife.
It's exactly 10 years to the day since Mohammed Paul's daughter went missing. A mother of 3, Lisa would now be 50 years old. She was last seen in the Willesden Green area in 2013. Her father was supporting her financially at the time, and when she didn't show up to collect her allowance, he instantly knew something was wrong.
Every day you hope somebody knock on the door and it's her. No. It's a torture for all my family.
Lisa's family say she was a good mother and that she radiated happiness and love. For Lauren Holly, a toddler in this photo, but 15 when she last saw her mother, it's not knowing what happened that is most difficult.
I've prepared myself for every outcome possible. Obviously, after 10 years, you do think she might have passed away. But then again, people who are heavily involved in those situations, they sometimes lose their memory, or they forget who they are, or they just, like, you can't miss a whole person. A whole person doesn't just go missing, you know?
Lisa's disappearance may be connected to a change in lifestyle. Her life was more turbulent than normal because she developed an addiction to drugs. But police say staying away from her children for any length of time is unusual.
This is out of character. It wasn't somebody that came to our notice in relation to repeat disappearing, or this is completely out of character. This is just an appeal to try and identify who out there may be able to give us that vital piece of information in order to locate Lisa.
Lisa's children have been left without any parents. Her husband died 4 years ago. The family hope the £10,000 reward will bring them both answers and peace of mind.
Whatever outcome it is, it would be so appreciated if someone can come forward and just let us know.
Ronke Phillips, ITV News.
Still to come on the programme, success down under. Emma Raducanu soars through the first round of the Australian Open and...
Oh, look, there's some.
Find out what Sally's been out spotting in Muswell Hill. But first, it will eventually become the UK's longest railway bridge, stretching for 2 miles outside Hillingdon. The Colne Valley Viaduct is part of the HS2 project, designed to speed up journey times between London, Birmingham and the north. With the first section complete, Anila Dami went for a walk along the bridge, where trains will one day run at high speed.
I'm taking steps on what is HS2's first completed section of what's going to become the UK's longest ever railway bridge.
With this part of the viaduct connecting London to Birmingham, and eventually tracks will be laid down to cross Britain, with the first train expected to travel between 2029 and 2033. Over 250 people have been working on the Colne Valley Viaduct since May last year.
At the moment, as you can see, is on the construction site, but in the future, once the train starts running over, it will be an iconic thing for the Britain. It's a good project to be in for most of the people that kind of learning and coming up to the new careers within the construction industry.
This giant red structure, a launch girder mostly used in Hong Kong and Singapore, has been lifting 1,000 concrete deck segments into position to form the arches, each one the size of a double-decker bus. The viaduct stretches for more than 2 miles across lakes and waterways between Hillingdon and the M25, in what the government regards the big British Levelling Up project to better connect the country. This particular route is Phase 1, which will finish in 2024. It has cost £44.6 billion, but with inflation, that could rise. The overall project has already spent £1.7 billion of its contingency money. Amid rising costs, some MPs and members of the House of Lords have repeatedly called for HS2 to be scaled back or cancelled.
Look, HS2 is happening. There's a real commitment across government. The Chancellor reconfirmed that commitment in his autumn statement. This is a key project to connect our cities together, build a greener railway for the future, and also provide jobs and skills which we can then export across the world. So this is a brilliant infrastructure project.
The green aspect has come under scrutiny too from campaigners, but HS2 says the project has environmental targets in place. The building site you see here, they say, will be transformed by trees, plants and wildlife. There are still many phases left. The Leeds leg of the journey has been scrapped, with the rail minister saying they'll be publishing a study on this shortly. So there's still a long way to go until the final stop. Anila Dami, ITV News.
Sport now, and Emma Raducanu is through to the next round of the Australian Open.
Zero Accounting Software sponsors ITV Regional Sports Report.
Raducanu bounced back from an injury scare to return to winning ways overnight. The 20-year-old British #1 from Bromley couldn't contain her joy as she came through her first round test with a straight sets win, just 11 days after hurting her ankle in a warm-up event. It wasn't such good news, though, for Surrey's Jack Draper, whose Australian Open debut has ended already. With all the first day's action, here's Anton Allen.
London's top tennis star shined as the former US Open champion prolonged her stay in Australia, but her compatriots will soon be on the plane home. Bromley's Emma Raducanu returned to winning ways after recovering from an ankle injury to take on German Tamara Korpach in the opening round of the Australian Open. Her confidence growing during the match, Raducanu pulled off a straight sets win in under an hour and a half. 6-3, 6-2, setting the 20-year-old up with a second round match against American Coco Gauff.
Obviously really happy to be through to the second round. Yeah, it was always going to be difficult, you know, coming in with so little prep and being out there, but yeah, I'm just really happy to have come through that.
But not every Londoner found enough match-winning strokes. 21-year-old Jack Draper played superb tennis against his hero, defending champion Rafael Nadal. Nadal dropped a set, but Draper started cramping, and his Aussie dreams were crushed by the man he modelled his own game on. Sutton's rising star in the men's game has said he aims to work on his physical fitness.
You know, real honour to play against him, someone I've, you know, idolised growing up, and to go toe-to-toe with him on a big court like that, you know, it's special. I think I can take away the fact that my tennis is getting closer and closer, and physically, you know, I'll be the first to say I'm still a work in progress. So.
Hampstead's Harriet Dart was unable to turn a good start into a strong finish against the 32nd seed Jill Takeman. The British number 2's career best form during last year gained her entry into the main draw for the first time. The 26-year-old led the Swiss player 4-2, but Takeman fought back and was too solid for Dart in the second set, taking the match 7-5, 6-1. London's hopes of Australian Open singles success now solely rest on the young shoulders of Emma Raducanu.
Antoine Allen reporting there. Now, it was a fiery affair in the North London derby last night as Arsenal extended their lead at the top of the Premier League table with a 2-goal victory over rivals Tottenham Hotspur. An own goal by Hugo Lloris after 15 minutes gave the Gunners a bright start. They extended that lead just after the half-an-hour mark with a superb long-range effort for captain Martin Odegaard. With Manchester City losing at the weekend, Arsenal now have an 8-point cushion at the top of the table. However, the game was marred with controversy at full-time when a Spurs fan attempted to kick Arsenal goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale. In a statement, the club said they are working with the Met Police and Arsenal to identify the supporter and will take the strongest possible action. And it was a victorious series win for the London Pulse players who played with the Red Roses this weekend. Jess Thirlby's women wrapped up a 2-1 series win with a 63-59 victory against Jamaica at the Copper Box yesterday. And Sally is here. Gosh, it's getting cold out there.
I know, it's freezing, isn't it? The trend, I'll talk about more of this in a minute, is for us to have warmer, wetter winters, but we are in the second cold snap of winter. I'm really ready to put a nice, thin, attractive coat on, but I'm stuck in the black puffer jacket. Anyway, let's take a look at these lovely photos from December. Oh, isn't that gorgeous? Unfortunately, it's not going to be quite as lovely as that, although I know some people hate the cold weather and the snow, and it's getting so expensive.
You didn't predict that one, did you? I'm sorry, you didn't know, did you?
No.
No, it came out of nowhere.
But we are going to have potentially some wintry showers over the next few days. But probably not anything like that. Up north, if you live up in northwest of Scotland, then you could have a foot of snow. But of course we don't. We live in London. But it is going to be really cold. Here we go.
ITV London weekday weather is sponsored by Octopus Electric Vehicles. Car, charger and energy.
Hello again. Well, yesterday was quite nice. A bit of sunshine around to enjoy. Today, quite different from this. We had a gloomy old picture for a lot of the day. And look at the temperatures. January so far, we've had an average of 9 degrees. This week, we are going to see an average high of only 3 or 4, so quite a bit colder. And to go with those For those. Some sunny spells though in the daytime with the odd wintry shower, maybe a bit of sleet or snow, but generally a lot of dry weather for us here in London and the surrounding areas. So back to you tonight for the detail. With quite a lot of clear skies tonight, those temperatures are going to plummet. You can see a widespread frost heading our way. Temperatures down to below freezing, and even colder than these figures in the countryside. And so it is going to be colder than last night. So watch out for that frost. If you're using the car tomorrow, it could well take a bit longer to get everything going. And as I said, on the roads there could be some icy stretches as well. Might even be a little bit of fog and mist around first thing tomorrow morning, which could be a little bit slow to clear. But we have got some sunny spells heading our way. There is some cloud too, but that sunshine should help things a tiny bit, because look at the temperatures, really cold. Highs of only 1 to 4 degrees tomorrow, though we have got slightly lighter winds than today. But as we head into the evening, a really similar story to this evening. Temperatures plummet again and another widespread frost on the cars. And that's the story for a lot of the week. In the daytime, pretty dry, can't rule out a wintry shower, a bit of snow or sleet here or there, but cold by day, very cold by night. Maybe temperatures starting to recover though into the weekend. That is your full forecast for now.
ITV London weekday weather is sponsored by Octopus Electric Vehicles.
Oh, that was a lot of blue on the map. Now, you've been out bird watching today, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
What a lovely hobby.
Well, to add to the collection. I wouldn't want to be a bird in this weather, that's for sure. Thank goodness they've got feathers. Yeah, so climate change means, of course, we're getting warmer, wetter winters, and that can affect the birds. And this weekend, it's the great big... No, not next weekend, rather. It's the great big garden bird watch, which the RSPB run, and they want people to get out in their gardens and count their birds. They're also doing it through schools as well. So I went to a lovely school where they've got this fabulous woodland in East Finchley, and we went to have a look at the birds. Not very scientific, but it was great fun. Let's take a look.
Good morning. Okay. What do we say to the oak tree? Good morning, oak tree.
I'm sorry, but I have to hear that again.
Good morning, oak tree.
For if there's one thing better than nature itself, it's watching little ones discover it. What can you see?
I can't see anything.
Can you see any twigs?
Yeah.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
I'm probably not quite the young bird she was hoping to spot, but with better eyes than the adults, these kids are handy to have around.
Crow. So maybe... You already saw a crow? In a nest? I think you're right. I think there's a nest right up there. Everyone look up.
There.
Can you see a tail sticking out from that nest right up
Yeah,
there?
I see that nest.
Coldfall Primary in East Finchley are very lucky to have ancient woodland in their grounds, and they're learning how to bird spot for the RSPB's Big Schools Birdwatch.
And they need lots of energy to stay warm. That's right.
You see something good? The binoculars may be upside down and back to front, but they don't let the details get in the way.
Shall I look? Oh, look, there's some. Ooh, what are they? I found one.
Wow, what were they?
They were... A crow.
A crow. Good choice. Questionable data or not, there's a good reason to start them bird spotting this young.
Really, we need children to have a relationship with the natural world and the outdoors, and then they start to care about it. And when they care about it, they want to protect it.
And hopefully the 38 million birds we've lost from the skies in the last 50 years can be reversed. A necessity if our winters keep getting warmer.
That can mean that some birds think, oh, is it breeding season already? So they start to breed earlier, but then their food source isn't around for their chicks. So it has a massive knock-on effect because, of course, garden birds don't exist in isolation.
The Great Garden Birdwatch is next weekend and anyone can join in. But for now, covered in a layer of both mud and chocolate, what better way to finish a successful birdwatch than with a toast?
Cheers.
Sally Williams, ITV News, East Finchley.
You like hot chocolate, don't you? Thank you, Sally. And that is it. Charlene is here next with the ITV Evening News. But from me and the rest of the London team, thank you for watching and have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.